Well, hello everybody, I'm Neil Barrenblatt with Creative Cow, and tonight we're going to learn to model some furniture. But first I just wanted to point out that I couldn't exactly find my robe tonight, so I figured I'd take this opportunity to switch things up a little bit and wear this little Corona style shirt. Got a little beach in the background and a little bottle of Bailey's. So, but let's look at what we're going to do tonight. We're going to create this awesome, bad-ace leather armchair, recliner, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to get into the camera moves because that's another story, but what we do want to get into is all of these modeling techniques. These messing with vertices, this hyper nurbs, all of these things used to model something from scratch. You don't even need a really much of a reference image. It's just this is from scratch, and we're going to texture it too. So yeah, why don't we get into cinema, see what we got going for us tonight, and let's get started on modeling this armchair.
So basically we're going to build these things out of cubes, which is located right up in Chow in the Shapes box menu thing. So if we click cube, we're going to start out with just this one. And I want this to be basically where you sit your fanny. So let's go ahead and size that to something, you know, halfway reasonable. Cool. I can dig that. Okay, so what we have right now is just a basic cube, but what we need to do is randomize a lot of things about that. The first thing we can do is under the object attributes, we have the options of adding more segments. This is also known as subdividing, but here it's a little more controllable because we haven't done something called making the object editable yet, which I will get to. But first, just know that we can increase these segments pretty dynamically up and down. It's non-destructive. You can, you know, obviously just make them at 1 again, and you'll get back to where you were. So I'm going to put it at about 8 on each axis, just like that. Now what I'm about to do is make the object editable, which will now make this subdivision permanent, but allow us to control the geometry itself. So watch and it'll become a little more clear. So check her out. I'm going to press this button right here that if you look down here, when I press it, it says make object editable. So I'm going to press that. I can also use the shortcut C. And it doesn't look any different right now, except when we go into point mode, we can actually select different points and do what we have our way with them, and that's exactly what we are going to do. So I'm going to pick random points and just sort of, what I want to do is sort of simulate a leather look, and nothing in life is exactly, you know, perfect. So what we're really going to go for this entire time is imperfections. If you've ever seen that movie, Bicentennial Man, I believe the dude from Dr. Dolittle and The Day After Tomorrow, the scientist who works on Robin Williams, talks about imperfections in the human skin and making that the key to recreating humanity. That's kind of what this is. This is basically at that level of awesomeness. So, you know, just go ahead and select random points, move them up, down, all around. There is no right answer here. Just get it to where it's something pretty random. And if you know of a plugin that I don't that selects random points that I may have known about once before and I don't anymore, you can just go ahead and email that to me, and that would just be fan-bloody-tastic. Okay. Alright, I think that's going to be fine for now because what I'm going to show you is might change your mind about what you're doing right now. Okay, but what you did is right. Not that it's wrong, you just might, you know, change a little bit of what you're thinking. Don't worry about that right now. What we're going to do is keep building, and I'll get back to what I was saying. Let's build every shape so that we get the shape of the chair. So let's make another cube, and we're going to have this, we'll call this arm left, okay, because we're going to have this on to the left, and we'll call this base. Awesome. Okay, so let's go to our quad view and just sort of move this into place, kind of like that. You know, it's a little long because we're going to push it that way, bring it to good height. You know, maybe just a little taller than the base. And a little thinner. Bring it back. A little longer. Maybe not that long. I lied. Bring it back a little more. Just kind of a, quick adjustments, but detail adjustments. Perfect. Okay. I think we're gonna be fine with something like that. So this is the basic shape. What I want to do is add some segments, but not quite as many as the other one because we're going to treat it a little bit differently. I want to actually shape this into what you saw in the demo, so we have kind of a slanting arm. So I'm going to add some segments in the X axis, and that should probably be enough, if not more than enough. So maybe we'll take it down to 5. And now that I'm looking at it, maybe this thing can be a little less tall. Something like that. Line it back up. Bring it back to the floor. Perfect. Okay, so let's make it editable. Grab the point mode, just like this, and start selecting some of these points and just bringing them down like so. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. If we don't feel like this is tall enough, we can take these points and kind of move these back up, kind of like that. And that's pretty perfect. I'm totally digging that. If you want, you're welcome to take this and subdivide it even further to get some more of that randomness that we had there. And the way that I do that is to select it, go into polygon mode, Control A for select all, and go to Functions, Subdivide, and pick your number, however detailed you want to get. 2. We will probably need that subdivision anyway for when we smoothen things out. But now we can just go back into point mode and just start taking these and randomizing everything just a little bit. Kind of like that. Not that much. You want to you don't want to never want to overdo it. So, cool. And this is, this project is sort of just kind of a tedious thing that you're more interested in what it's going to come out with at the end than when you're actually doing it. And sometimes that's okay. We cannot just be insanely interested in every single thing we do. But it is fun once it comes out because you're like, I created a piece of furniture. Okay, that's going to be good enough for now. So, we're just going to leave one of those for now, and I will show you why later. Actually, forget I said that. Let's make the other one. To make the other one, make sure you have the object selected and go to this menu right here, hold your click down, and press Instance. And now if we go back into object mode and drag this over, we have an exact duplicate of that arm, and however we change this one, it will change that one too. So we're going to name this arm right. Awesome. So, and arm right is an okay name. We know it's an instance because of the icon that Cinema 4D assigns to it in the objects little menu. So now we have this, we're the beginnings of our throne are starting to really come together. Let's create the back real quick, which is going to be made up of a few cubes and then a few cubes to be the sides. So I would say let's take a cube and again measure it up. Okay, that's probably looking like what I want it to look like. Bring it up there just like that. Oh, it looks like it created 2, so let's turn that one off for just a second. We will use it momentarily. Okay, it's a little long. We want it to be within those arms. Cool. And yeah, that's a pretty good size. Why don't I just get rid of that one and copy this one and paste it like so. Maybe size it down just a little bit. And I don't know, just make everything a little random. Just kind of size the depth of it in a little bit. Can't really see. Yeah, bigger view, so I can actually see what it is that I'm doing. Bring it down. Maybe bring it back out. Maybe they do need to be about the same. That's fine. And let's make one more for the headpiece. And it's actually looking kind of short, so why don't I make this one a little taller. Maybe make this one semi-short, this one really tall, like so. And this one will be the headpiece, which I'm going to rotate, not completely randomly, but about like that. Awesome. So I'm going to actually also take the headpiece, we'll name them in just a second, and copy paste it, rotate it back to roughly how we had it, and this way, 90 degrees, and I'm going to bring it over and make some sides. So yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's do something like that, make it not as tall, whatever, bring it down, around, let's make an instance of that, so whatever we do to that one, it will do it on this side. I will show you that so you believe me and don't think I'm a rotting liar. Look at that, so beautiful. It does not work for transform though, so if you move one, you need to move the other. Okay, so also what I want to do is rotate this a little bit because this is what you recline against. So maybe rotate that just a little bit and rotate that back and shift select these and shift select these and bring them back just a little bit, and maybe I'll rotate that too so I can match, but rotate this one even more. This one needs to be much more rotated. Maybe I'll have to resize it. Totally fine. Awesome. So if we come and zoom out, I'm not going to worry about the randomness on these right now. I think these are really the most important. Maybe we could pull this out just a little bit because you need more of a place to sit. And I'm not going to do anything for the footrest and all that stuff, but if you wanted to, you totally could. So this is the basic shape of our armchair. What we need to do now is add that finesse and that detail that really gets it, because that does not look like a chair that you want to put in your work. So really the key here, first of all, is naming things. Bottom, I won't even put in the word cushion, it's not necessary. Middle, and headrest, why not? And we will name this side left and side right. Naming is so important because then you can actually tell what it is you're doing. Alright, so what we want to do now is create a hypernurbs object. And we're going to create one of these for every piece of the furniture that we have. So what this does is it subdivides a piece of geometry non-destructively, which means you can just turn it off and it didn't alter your geometry. So I'm going to start with the base and bring that in because that should be ready, pretty good and ready for it. So yeah, that looks pretty awesome. You can see really clearly now. Let's pull it out just a little bit. You can see really clearly now that we got some good randomness. And the great part about this is, when I was telling you you might change your mind earlier, is that if you have hypernurbs on, but click on the original base and go into point mode, you can alter your original points and see how the hypernurbs is affecting it. So you can move things off to the side to get more randomness. You're really playing with the wrinkles of everything now. Let's move things down. Let's select more than one point at a time and just move these back. Oh yeah, you know, create some holes or some wear and tear and stuff like that. Awesome, excellent. So now what we can do is create hypernurbs objects for every object, and we'll just go one by one and see how it looks. Make sure we don't want to mess with anything. I think we should. I think we should bring that up. You know, bring that out. Oh, that's some cool leather, I want to say texture. It's not texture, but cool leather, you know, feel to this thing. So let's do the same thing to arm right. So let's get a hypernurbs object in there. Awesome. Looks the exact same. And now watch closely what happens when I do something like the side with a hypernurbs object. Hypernurbs object. It becomes a freaking egg, and that's not what we want. What's happening here is the hypernurbs object is subdividing, and when you subdivide, it's like, okay, what it's actually doing is it's smoothing based on your current level of subdivision. So we don't have any subdivision here, so it's going to smooth the crap out of it. It is trying to interpolate between points, and you're getting this, like, basically no interpolation. Or too much interpolation, depending on how you look at it. What we want to do is create more subdivision to interpolate between, which is right inside of the hypernurbs object. So that's not what I meant. What I meant is it is inside of the object. You want to create more segments for hypernurbs to recognize. So if I start creating more segments in every axis, you get more of your original shape, which was a cube. So let's try putting 4 in every axis. And let's click out. Yeah, that's looking so much freaking better. We can see we need to resize it, which is totally easy and fine. Go into object mode and just yank the lever. And yeah, that's looking pretty sweet. I'm definitely digging that. So we can randomize a little bit if we want by making it editable and taking in the points just like so and sort of moving them around just like so. Now, one thing I want you to notice is that this did not hypernurb. This did not smooth out. It's moving the points because they're the same object, but it is not smoothing out even though we put the hypernurbs on the other one. And that's because what we're referencing with the instance object, because that's all it is, it's a reference copy. It's like a mirror, but it's not mirroring it, it's just referencing it. But it's referencing this, not this. And now this is the parent, this is the child. So what we want to do actually is go into side right and replace the reference object with the hypernurbs. So now it's the same thing. We messed up our position and rotation of a little bit, so we might have to re-rotate it to 90 degrees, bring it back over, and reposition a little bit. Not a big deal. You could just wait to do an instance the entire time. That's another thing, but I figured it was just easier in my head for this tutorial to do it this way, even though I'll probably run into more problems than I would have otherwise. So that's something for you to think about, not me. So I'm a dumbass is basically what I'm getting at. That is the point of this tutorial and this conversation. Thank you, good night. No. So now we have that. So we're going to end up doing the same thing for these pieces. So let's get another hypernurbs object, and bam, headrest. I'm going to add some more segments to it. So let's do 4 in each axis. Yeah. You know what? With the headrest, I don't want to give it that much definition, so I'm going to add 2. Yeah, that's much better. And I'll just make it bigger. I actually want it to be more like a freaking balloon. So, because that's just what I'm going for. So, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Trying to position it freaking right so that you can actually rest your head on it. Awesome. Let's put some more segments in this before we make it into a hypernurbs. We'll put 4, 4, 4. Hypernurbs. Awesome. And one last one for the bottom. Let's drag this down just a tad. And 4, 4, 4, because we don't want freaking gerbil poop as the back of our chair. And awesome, that's looking really good. Let's pull this back a little bit because it's in my way. You know, if you want, make the middle editable and do the same thing we've been doing. We want that randomness. We love that randomness. So, and I mean, you know, like I said before, this is a tedious thing. This is not creating an ocean where it's a magical effect and all of a sudden you have a crazy ocean or a mountain or something like that. This is modeling. That is this tutorial. Just like plain old, get some good modeling techniques. So if we render right now, we have a solid looking chair. I mean, it's pretty good. I think maybe the side has a little too much definition. You know, maybe in yours you wouldn't give it that much definition. I think we can, you know, I don't know. It just kind of is, and I would rather not have that much blockiness to it, but that's okay. It doesn't look bad. It's just what I prefer. The last thing we want to do geometrically is create cup holders for the sides of the arms, or for the sides of the arms, for the arms of the chair, as you saw in the demo video. And we're going to use a technique called Boolean to get this done. So Boolean means it's a mathematical computation for all of you math connoisseurs out there. It's an equation between geometry. So it says take, for example, and the most common is take A and subtract B from it. So it's A minus B. So it's this arm minus a cylinder, which is exactly what we're going to do to get a cup holder. So let's make the cylinder first and foremost, right, machal. And let's go into quad mode, and I'm actually going to go into the top and just position it and size it right. So I'm going to size it up here with the radius, and the height doesn't matter too much, but I'm going to go into object mode and take it down, because I'll just have it be approximately the depth that I want it to be, because that'll just make things a little cleaner. So maybe a little deeper. And you'll see what I mean by deeper. This geometry is how deep it's going to go into the chair. So let me go fetch the Boolean object, which is located right in this menu right here, bool. And so what I want to do is take the hypernurbs object, the arm left, and drop it in there. I'll collapse it so I don't get confused. And take that and say subtract the cylinder. So put the cylinder below it. And voila! We have a hole in that arm. Perfect geometry. Didn't have to do any deleting of points or anything like that. If this kind of thing bothers you, if you click on the Boolean object, you can see all this really weird geometry around it that may screw up your texturing. So what you do is just press hide new edges in the Boolean attributes and the object attributes, and it's a lot cleaner now. Perfectly clean. Awesome. It's a little too deep, I think. I mean, it's probably not, but I'm going to make it a little less deep. So all you got to do, it's totally dynamic. Take the cylinder and just move it up, just like that. And voila, if we render, look at that hole. Look at that. That is awesome. Now, same thing that happened before, to where we do not have a cup holder on this side, and that is painful. That is painful. So, what I'm going to do is actually put this inside of a null object by pressing Alt-G, because I'm also going to add a little cylinder for the metal rim, but not yet. I want to, in the instance of that arm, I actually want to reference this null object now. So whatever I do inside of this null object will change on the other arm. So no matter what I do. So I'm going to go to the arm right. There's the instance right there. And just drop the null. And it messed up our position a little bit. So we'll just move it back into position. Go to our quad so we can line it up just right. Looks like maybe it got pushed up just a little bit, and maybe bring it back a little bit over here. Okay, too much, not that much. Perfect. Awesome. So now if we go ahead and render, we should have cup holders on both sides. So now no matter what we do to this side, I should have done that from the beginning, but it will be the same. So let's go ahead and add our coaster rim in there. So I'm going to use a tube and just bring the, line it up just like we did the cup holder, just like so, bring the outer radius in a bunch. May have to do it right here. Ugh, there we go. Okay, so we want it to be a little wider, obviously, than the actual hole itself. Let's line it up so it's close to perfect. Outer radius, inner radius, right about at it, and genius, brilliant. Let's bring the height way down, and you can just bring it up, and voila, there is your rim. It's kind of messy because of the way we have the arm geometry. So what we can actually do is go back into the arm, which is located right there, and let's just bring some of those points up here that we kind of screwed around with, so this can be even. Yeah, just like, we'll actually turn the tube off for a second so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, take these points and just move them back up to how they were, because this unevenness isn't really working for us down here. And we'll bring these two down. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so let's turn the tube on. Yeah, I mean, you can mess around with a little bit more, but that's much better. We'll even bring the outer radius in a little bit, and that'll help. So we'll just bring it down as much as we can. Yeah, I would say mess around with that. And I'm also going to fillet it, give it some smoothness, maybe a little fewer segments, so we have something like that, not so much geometry. And we'll just drop this into the null object so you can see right there it appeared on the other side. So geometrically, we are perfect with the chair. This is exactly where we want to be. Now I'm going to finish up by texturing this thing, lighting it, so we have something good and pretty to look at. So if we go into our materials tab right here, I'm going to create a new material. And this part is actually not that hard. So I'm going to go into the material because it's crap right now, and I'm going to choose my color, which I'm going to choose kind of a faded brown, just like that. Perfect. The key here really is two things. It's the specular and it's the bump. With the specular, I'm going to bring the height up really, really high and bring the width down, because I want these, I mean, it looks realistic to me, but I like really harsh specular highlights, like really polished leather, kind of. That's the kind of leather I'm going to go for. So the bump is the other key. So I'm going to put it on, turn it on, and in my texture, I'm going to go to noise. And already you can see we're getting this really crazy texture that's going to show up all over this chair. But I'm going to go into the noise, because if you go into the noise, you can actually choose which kind of noise you want. And I found that for this, wavy turbulence worked really well. It kind of looks like a foamy ocean, but if we bring the global scale up to 500, now we have this really interesting grungy texture that we can work with for this leather. And what I'm actually going to do is we want some pretty sharp edges, and this is really gray, and we're going to get sharpness with black and white, with more contrast. So I'm going to take the contrast up is all I'm going to do. And you know, if it's hard to see on this thing, you can actually right click and make it huge and make it a cube, or I like to make it a plane to kind of see what I'm doing. Yeah, awesome. So maybe we'll contrast this up just even a little bit more. Perfect. And if we go back to the bump, we can make it more bumpy or less bumpy. You can see the more bumpy it is, the more the speculars are really going to come through. So we'll leave it at its default 20 right now. And we'll see what happens. So let's start applying this to different things. Let's just apply it to the side right, and if you control click on it and drag, you can just copy the texture. So I'm going to apply it to every hypernurbs object, to every parent of each hierarchy, and voila. Now, well, actually, except for this one, I'm going to apply this to the bool, because we're going to texture these things a little bit differently. And actually, now that I look at it, we don't want this arm texture at all, because it'll just do what the other one did, because it's an instance object. So now if we render, yeah, that's looking pretty cool. We definitely need some better lighting, but it's really starting to get there. We can already tell these wrinkles are looking fantastic. So before we add some light, let's go grab a metal texture and texture these puppies right here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go into Cinema 4D's preset stuff that Cinema 4D comes with. So I'm going to go to Cinema 4D, Materials, Basic, and I'm just going to pull both of these metals and see which ones work better for me. I'm going to start with this one because it's more reflective. So I'm going to put it on the tube. You can see it changed it right there. Awesome. I'm going to stick with that for now. I'm totally digging it. Actually, one other thing geometrically that I wanted to do was create a crease inside of these arms. So I'm going to go into the arms like so. And there's actually not enough geometry to create those creases. So what I'm going to have to do is create a little extra. And for this, I'm going to use the knife tool under Structure. And so we have this tool where we can cut things and create new geometry. If we go over to the attributes, I'm going to choose Loop, because that gives us the ability to literally just loop an entire piece of geometry. So I'm going to click once there, and you'll see why, and once there, and once there, and once there. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is go overhead, just like so. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to take the middle of each of those creases that I just made, by just hovering over, just like so. I think I'm getting the right ones. This may be actually easier to do in the 3D mode. Yeah, I think I was selecting totally the wrong ones. I want to get the middle, and I'm going to have to deselect some of them. So to deselect, hold Control and deselect what you don't want, and it's a little bit tricky. But hey baby, this is modeling. And we're going to do the same on the other side, so shift click to select more points that you didn't select before. And perfecto, except for these 2 points. Okay, and really we're just going to drag down. I see a problem child that I don't want right there. This point right here. Okay, so now we're literally just going to drag down. Perfect. So that's pretty much all I had to do, because it's going to copy it on the other side. So now when I render, it's too much, but it's really cool. So let's bring them back up just a little bit and re-render. But yeah, it's definitely adding a lot more detail into this chair, and it's very smooth because of the hypernurbs. I'll bring it up even a little bit more. I want this to be really subtle. Maybe that's not enough. Bring it back down. This is definitely something to play with and tinker with. I'm not going to get the perfect result right now, but yeah, I'm going to stick with that. Okay, so now geometrically we're done. So now all we really need to do is light this puppy. Let's do it. You can light it any way you want, but even just making one new light and dragging it out, and you know, with my OpenGL I can see everything that's happening right here, and give it yeah, let's give it a soft shadow, or maybe even a hard shadow, and see what that does. Oh my god, that is beautiful and so awesomely realistic. Hard shadows, oh my god, they're sexy. Okay, so let's create another light, give it some backlighting, just like so. It's still going to be pretty harsh, which is what I'm digging right now. Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. You know what? I think that's good enough for right now. You can create your own floor, you can create your own environments, but I'm so happy with this right now. That is an armchair for the ages. So, you know, I think we went through a lot of things. Yeah, this is looking really good.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I hope now you feel like you could take this idea and make other furniture. I don't know, other chairs, couches, beds, tables. I don't know, maybe there's something I can get into in another tutorial. Who knows? Who really knows much of anything? But I think I'm going to retire tonight with my little bottle of Bailey's. Use your imagination on whatever that means, because I don't even think I know. Alright guys, have a good night. More to come at Creative Cal. More to come at Creative Cal. So stay tuned. Come back, because we got more, baby. We got more coming.